worthy cause. Thank you. So we're going to start out with approval of the minutes.
Sure, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the minutes of the April 19, 2017 regular meeting and the May 1, 2017 special meeting as submitted.
Second.
Thanks, Pete. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Superintendent's report?
Okay, well, join me down below, please. My report and the budget. I'd like to thank our diehards for joining us again this evening and coming out. It's great to see all of you. It's like going to the gym. You see the regular people over the last 8 years. You know, all the new members join, leave, and the remaining few. Usually listed suspects, but thank you so much for being here. Before I get to the last part of the budget, the fifth part, here we are in May. The vote is a week away. I'd like to show up the district a little bit. I began this last week, and I just have some things quickly that I want to share with you and why the budget is so important. And the fact that we plan and try to budget going out long-term, the integrity of the district, the integrity of our programs that are working, whether they're clubs, sports, music, FBLA, they work. Achievements in science, maybe some of you can help me understand what this says, but Mount Sinai students went to Stony Brook and isolated DNA from species they collected in Port Jefferson and Mount Sinai harbors. For the Long Island Biodiversity Project with Cold Spring Harbor, we're partnering with Cold Spring. That's pretty amazing stuff. The Ocean Science Bowl finished 5th in the nation in Oregon. The Environmental Club, Ocean Bowl Club, received a mini grant, and you could go on. Long Island Science Congress, we have 2 Mount Sinai students representing us. Elementary school last Saturday, we had 5 representatives at B&L last Saturday. We had a young lady represent the 3rd grade. One of our young men, one of the 5, Nicholas Wells, won an honorable mention award at Brookhaven. We're just going to our athletics, as I know, trying to get to a number of events, extreme success, and we used to think that spring was the quiet season, but it's something to be very proud of. Scholar athlete teams, where the kids, 75% of the team has to maintain a 90 average. Well, just recently, this season, varsity girls track, varsity softball, varsity boys track, varsity girls golf, varsity girls lacrosse, varsity boys lacrosse, all scholar athlete teams in Mount Sinai. Quite a list. Victoria Johnson, named News 12 Scholar Athlete Award for 2017. George Rayner, high school varsity baseball and Newsdays Athlete of the Week, April 12. And this is currently, right now, for these teams that are having great success. Varsity boys track, undefeated. Varsity girls track, undefeated. Varsity boys lacrosse, playoffs will be determined by the result of tomorrow's game. Varsity girls lacrosse in the playoffs. Varsity softball, girls again undefeated, had a great year last year as well. Varsity girls golf, county qualifiers. Varsity baseball in playoffs. Varsity boys tennis league champions. That's unbelievable. That's right now, this year. More academic achievements, just things to mention. Our budget supports technology, including our budget as 30 to 40 iPads to work with our kids with special needs. Miss Allison Morris, our 3rd grade teacher, recognized by ASSET, the Association of Subject Supervisors, because of her use of mini pads in her classroom. She won a prestigious award. Our Math Teachers Association math team members placed FBLA. I think this is a great event that this club experience provides for our kids. Holding a food supplies drive will be going to the Ronald McDonald House, Long Island, to prepare and serve dinner to families who are staying there. Special recognition, this young lady, because of work with the SAD Club, organizing a holiday magic event. Ashley Spalletti was awarded the All-State Driving Actress Award Scholarship sponsored by Allstate and the Suffolk County High School Principals Association. Okay, again, her work with SAD helped her receive that scholarship. Just to look at some of the colleges of our top 25 students, 1/8 of our graduating class, and you can see the schools there where our kids will be attending. And below that, I bragged about music before, have to. We thought it was great last year when our young lady went to All Eastern, which, again, we have people, Karen Alvaretta, who's a vocalist, Claire Kai, they were All Eastern, but more importantly, if you look down below, this is the first time ever in Mount Sinai. We have two students, actually brother and sister, who will represent Mount Sinai at the National Youth Orchestra. National, not just Eastern. They are recognized as the best on their instruments. And what is involved for these kids this summer is they get to study under some of the greatest directors. Then they will perform on tour of Latin America. Not bad for junior and a sophomore. Okay, now I'm ready for Budget City. But what's important is, as I presented last week and this week, we, the board, wants to maintain the dignity of our programs, keep our clubs, keep these wonderful opportunities that we provide for our students, whether it's music, whether it's athletics, our science, our math clubs, all of this is working for us. Amazing what our kids are capable of doing. So this is basically a very quick recap, because it goes back to January, so it won't be in as much detail as we presented in the past. January through March and April. Okay, our budget this year versus last year. We told you the tax levy, probably those of you here have heard this many times, 1.70 this year compared to 0.56 last year. So the state, that worked out in our favor in our formula, and we had an increase in state aid. Our tax levy is at the cap. Now, what we've shown to you over the last few months is this 3% budgeting growth. If you look up on top, you'll see what our budgets have been for the last few years, and then projected budgets going forward. I need to draw your attention to 2017-18, where it's saying 2.1%. Some of you were with me in January when we were pointing out that you saw a 3 sitting there because of the unknown factors when we create the budget. Did we know we were going to get state aid? No. Do we know what our tax levy was? No. A number of factors. We weren't sure. But after what all was said and done, we got our tax levy in March. We just received more state aid in April. That 3% moved down to 2.1. Okay? That's a big difference. So if you look on the left, under appropriations and move across this year, planning for next year, 17-18, what sat there under 3% was appropriating 3.7 million from fund balance. Where are we now at 2.1? We're at 1.8, half the amount we projected in January. Okay? So, going forward, that's good news down below in our fund balance. But still, as you look and as you plan, we like to be conservative. We do put a 3% up there. You can see it varies from year to year. 14-15, you had a negative 3.6. Then we were trying to implement, and we did implement full day K. That shows also, by the way, the roughly 400,000 to 500,000 the state gave us. So that was a jump in budget. to 3.28. Then immediately we came down, we absorbed the cost of full day pay, a writing program to start aiding security, and now we're down to 2.1. Our goal next year is to be under 2%. Right? We're trying to bring our expenses down. We ultimately want expenses to meet revenue. That is the goal. Well, what this shows, at 3%, being conservative, next year's looking good, the year after it's looking fine, but then you run into trouble in 1920. If you look at a 1.1% fund balance when you budget at 3%. Now, what if we are able to budget at 2? What's the difference? Now, why would we do that? Because look at how we're planning to come down, 2.29, 2.1, and Lynn and I, our goal is to be under 2. So going forward, your appropriations are less out of fund balance, and it helps you go out a little more safely, a little further. So what it enables you to do is you'll get into 1920, we'll get a little safer going out to 3 years, and then we still run into trouble. Now, why we say trouble is there are a lot of unknown factors. What's state aid? Have no clue. What's our tax levy? We have no clue. Maybe we can hope that Governor Cuomo is very kind in New York as he attempts to run for president, but you can't even count on that. But what we can count on, there's some unknowns. You don't know what the population of the district will be. There are many factors that can bring those expenses down. So 2%, if we're successful, even going under 2, and then again, you're guessing here, but as Linda manages to do every year, we don't spend the whole budget. We come out with another millions in savings. May will go safely out 3 years, maybe more. Now, again, that's going in where the trend where we feel we're going. But this is the conservative approach which we did this year, and we wound up at 2.1. Okay. Budgeting at 2 brings you out further, or at least in that 1 year, 18-19, with a 3%, it's 1.1 million percent balance, and here you have 4.1%. What can help us? Well, if they ever funded the unfunded mandates, for example, I told you about the testing, the lead testing on our water, is an example of an unfunded mandate. Governor Cuomo did this. What did he do? A month later, he put out new numbers we had to meet. We had to do it all over again. Now, some of these things the state recommend are very good for us and good for our kids in the school, create a healthy environment, but we get nothing back. They can send something out in 30 days. We want this done. That's an expense. And he's had his commission appointed since 2011. And what has happened to that commission? Absolutely nothing. Contracts negotiations, we're currently negotiating with our teachers. Next year we have the non-instructional contract. These contracts are very important to where we're going and how far out we go. We need to be respectful. I think both sides are still moving and negotiating fairly and respectfully. And I think the teachers understand the board's concern, which is to go out as far as we can to continue our programs, musical, instructional, athletics, as they currently exist for as long as we can, and not cut anything. So I've just shown you the things that we can celebrate and have celebrated. We want them intact. We try to save throughout the year. Suddenly, to maintain that $1 million savings at the end, Linda will suddenly say, halfway through the year, you better spend what you need right now because I'm slashing and ending spending in March. All right? Shock a lot of people. Right, Pete? She does that. We hope for increasing state aid and our fair share of state aid. Why we say fair share? When the governor presents, I put all this money in school aid, and you see it under foundation aid. Foundation aid is very friendly to very poor districts. Districts not like Mount Sinai. So the money's going to other places. not necessarily us, when they increase that money to the public or public schools. We don't benefit from foundation aid. We hope TRS and ERS stay at a reasonable rate. They have for the last 2 years. We pray that they stay at the rate. Again, things we don't know going forward: state aid, tax levy, ERS, TRS, what are our health insurance rates? It's a box of chocolates every year.
Gordon,
Yeah.
just if you could go back to your last set of charts, the 3%, you can leave it there. Either of these charts do not take into account changes in our student population.
Right.
Our largest class is presently 7th grade, making their way through. It's the last of the 200-plus student class. We were used to 215, 218. There are no greater numbers like that anymore. It's about 200 to 208. After 7th grade, it drops to the highest is 175, and there are classes with 120 and classes with anticipated for 135. Because we don't really know about that, we don't take that into account in either of the 3% or the 2% chart, because that would be a significant change in our needs. And that's where expense savings starts to add up. So when you're looking at 19, 20, 2021, by that point in time, the students who are now 1, 2, 3, 4 years out, the 7th graders will be graduating. So our class count will be very different. It's, in some instances, 40 kids less per what we're used to. So when we look at those numbers, they can fluctuate a great deal. We have not taken that into account in any of those calculations, because it's still, that's very, we know where the classes are, but we're not going into that change as of yet.
Right, but another dramatic example of that is full day K. First year we opened, we had 166 kids. They just came out of everywhere. But the following year, where were we, what, 130? Which,
120 or so.
120. Right now, full day K enrollment's 113. It will probably grow, but not to the extremes we had in the first year. So again, that's less sections, and it's sounds like a callous and a crude expression, but where your money is in the number of teachers you need to hire. And if you need less faculty because you have less kids, that's a savings. And it's hard to predict at this point. Thanks, Bob. Okay, here's that brief summary I was telling you about going forward. In this category, Board of Education, Central Administration is one of our January items. You see an increase because of litigious experiences we're going through in elementary, some special ed issues where they challenge state issues, they challenge school issues, and we have to plan some money in there. Are we going to spend all that? We have no idea. No idea. But because that was up, we put about 100,000 more into that area. Central services, just in that raise right there, we added on the security guard. Our neighboring districts added guards to be out there during recess and outside. So we have a guard who patrols the grounds, especially in the back of the school. If you've seen kids at recess outside the elementary school in the back, there are some vulnerable areas, especially the access to that area and holes in the post office fence over there. So we were talking to my neighbors, and we all moved with an outside security guard who also serves duty. We're trying to straighten out, and we think we might be in the right direction of the morning drop-off at the middle school, which we're trying to improve, and the security guard participates in that as well. And then eventually we want to look at the morning drop-off at the elementary school, make it less dangerous, more smooth, and we're hoping the middle school keeps going like it is.
The problem with the middle school drop-off, if you're not involved in it, is that we have some very impatient parents who are much more important than the rest of us online, and drop their children off in the access road and allow their children to run across the street, one lane and then into the next. Pete Premitetis has basically stood out in the road as a traffic cop in all weather, trying to prevent this. Because what's going to happen is someone's going to get hurt because of it. And between Pete and our building and grounds, they've made some real changes to change where you drop your child off. And hopefully that will educate us. But the reality of it is, if we can pass it on, if you're in line, just get in line. It's 10 minutes with regards to the safety of that child leaving and getting out at the right place. That's really what it comes down to.
How's it doing, Pete?
Patience.
So far, so good. So far, so good. You know, it's like Mr. Sweeney said. It's unfortunate that people don't heed our multiple notices for the past, few years. You know, we'll try this out. We'll continue to make improvements. So, but you can always use the bus too. So hopefully, between the two, I'm glad that you approved the changes, and it's been flowing really nicely.
That was a crazy situation over there, absolutely. Curriculum instruction, again, we're focusing on our elementary reading program, revitalizing it, providing training for our teachers, and we put some money away for that. Pupil personnel services, that is basically special education. And I think it's always important to point out that special ed, we don't cut a budget, it's not a fixed budget, it's a moving budget. That budget applies to the needs of our kids. We can put this figure up here, which we try to over budget and be safe, but what can happen is 2 kids can move in over the summer that need a lot of services, and you could jump up $150,000. We've had students return to the district. They were near hospitals, out of state. They rented their homes here in Mount Sinai. They returned, and one example was a $100,000 add to our budget when that young man returned. So it moves. Pupil activities, we added a few dollars. Pupil transportation, sport, remember we had a 5-year contract. In that contract, first student gave us a credit. Well, we knew when that contract was going to expire, we were going to go up. But we weren't ready for a $350,000 hit when that credit ended. So Linda and I were on the phone a number of times with our favorite person, the first student, to see what they could do. Long story short, instead of a $350,000 ad, it went down to $150,000, and now we have it down to $100,000 ad for the next few years. So we're happy that first student realized that Mount Sinai could not support a $350,000 raise. Adult ed and driver's ed, they're self-sustaining. Employee benefits, that is the kicker. It's we planned a 12% increase because this year that's what it was, 12%. Debt service, loans and leases. We have purchased a truck. We have purchased a tractor recently. So those are our lease payments. But our loans, our bonds on the district, we're nearing the end of those bonds, so the interest rates are going down, those payments are going down. And that's why you see that for a decrease. Transfers, summer special ed, we have priced out doing special ed summer school in the district, and it definitely would cost us more than $100,000. So we join a district that has it in place, and we keep our costs down at $100,000. This is IEP directed. These children on their IEP, they recommend summer school so there's no regression in their skills. And then you have salaries, the biggest one. And of course, again, why negotiations are so important. And we come to a respectful understanding with our teachers and non-instructional next year. And again, those negotiations are still alive at this point. And currently, we've been involved in those for over a year. And the grand total is down below, an increase this year's budget of $1,218,000, and tax levy increase in the cap is 1.7. What does all of this translate to this year's budget? To last, when all is said and done, the average assessment is an increase of $12 per month, $144 per year on the average home. Now, should the budget not pass, you have to, by law, have a contingency budget. And this is what I'm trying to figure out how this works, and I think I've got it. Okay? So you see our tax levy this year of $39,350, which we showed you. That's what the 1.7 brings in. Last year, our tax levy was $38,691. Now, the difference between the two is $658,560. What you have to do on a contingency budget is cut $658 out of your current budget. Correct, Linda?
Out of the proposed,
Out of the appropriated?
proposed.
Proposed budget. Right. The 50
Would
million.
you rather keep your tax levy the same as last year?
So it's last year's tax levy. So compared to the rise, what we have an increase in the budget, under contingency, should it go down, we have to get 658 from someplace. And then you have to, this is why we want to have a budget that maintains everything we're very proud of and that works for our students. You have a very tough process. I've gone through it in one of my former districts where we had to cut $4.5 million, and it's not a pleasant experience. Where do you start? Only start classes with low enrollment. A lowest enrollment. I made the mistake of mentioning a name of a course one time. I'll never do that again as long as I live. But you look at what your enrollment is in your AP classes. Does anyone want to touch AP classes? Absolutely not. The fact that we were named an AP honor roll recipient for 2 years in a row is something to be very proud of. The board is committed to maintaining the enrollment in your AP classes. Then you have to look at your staff development as you have planned, probably cut that. Equipment eliminated from budget, that's just a general rule under contingency, right, Linda? Classroom supplies, that's again another New York State rule. Look at extracurricular activities, which really don't amount to much. Supplies reduced for extracurricular activities. And I just said a few moments ago, where your money really is, what you don't want to touch or go near is cutting actual bodies for the budget, or classes, or programs. Okay, so we vote on the budget already next Tuesday. And we vote on our library services. We're fortunate enough to have Amsalaw. And that's next Tuesday, 6 to 9. And that is our budget at this point. Other questions? Yes, sir.
The integrated curriculum development, plain English, what does that mean?
Integrated curriculum development. If you're trying to plan cross curriculum, like what makes sense is if you have English teachers playing with social studies teachers, the writing projects can be combined. You have math with science, or you have technology meet with science. It all makes sense. It'll make more sense to kids rather go into 5 separate blocks that, hey, this is English, we're doing social studies, it all works. That kind of thing. Anyways, it's not English, so I shouldn't say. Yes.
You mentioned that, Mr. Sweeney mentioned that we have a very large class size in 7th grade, 200 plus kids. But the current enrollment for pre-K is 113?
Full day K.
Full day K,
113.
okay.
As we speak, we just checked again the other day.
Okay. So in relation to teachers and staff and needing that, as the class size shrinks, what's the ratio of students to teachers and maintaining that? Because, I mean, if,
It depends on your class levels, which grade it is. You might have 25 students in a class. I just observed the 5th grade class today, English class, and I had 25 students in it. We try to stay below 24, 25 in our kindergarten classes. There are some classes up to middle school, largest 28.
No, there's some 30.
You have some 30. Now you can do two things. You know, if you have the luxury of lowering the amount of kids in each class, you could do that. You have smaller classes, which is desirable. But you have that option, or accessing the teacher and keeping 25 to 28 in the class.
that's kind of my question is, what's the ideal ratio and where do we want to be? Now, assuming the budget stays constant, where, at what point?
And
do we
less
get
need for
to-
bodies, where would we want our class sizes to be?
Right.
The board would discuss that, as I just mentioned, and it's not just us who wants to protect our AP population, because some years, a particular class, any class, could be 6 to 8 kids. The next year it could be 15, but you're giving that opportunity to be an AP class. You protect those. What you look at is the classes on the other levels. You want to keep your kindergarten classes ideally smaller, and your elementary school classes smaller. And no one really wants to have 30 in a class these days. 28's respectable. I could sound like an old guy. When I started teaching, I had 35 in 10th grade. But obviously, the board would discuss that and see how we would handle the class size. If the budget wasn't balanced, there would be kind of a no-brainer of having to excess.
The other
And-
option is, as we've done in the last 2 years, is there have been retirements. Presently, for most of the retirements, we've had a replacement that is in and of itself maybe a lower salary. But going forward, if we were to have retirements going forward, we may not replace it one for one because the class size and the need wouldn't be there. It all comes back to if we can meet the need in a positive fashion that allows us to move forward, that would be the first choice.
Thank you.
Do you have a question?
Ben,
Is there a class cap in the current teacher's contract?
are there class
Yeah,
caps
hard cap or
specifically? Hard caps?
There's hard caps, yes.
Are they,
In
what,
each class.
depends on the
Each
subject
grade.
matter?
Depends on the grade,
Right.
depends on the grade and and
Particular class, like science classes obviously have caps, labs have caps on them.
Kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third.
Yeah, and if you have a certain population, you have to get an A sign with it.
That was a compliment. This was a question I originally had. Who do we contract out for our extended student services, special ed? Who do we use for district?
Do you know that? Port Jeff, Extended Services, which school districts? I know we use Port Jeff, Middle Country.
What do you
Extended
know?
Services for special ed students, Ben,
It
is that
depends
correct?
on what their needs are. We go to Shoreham, whichever, it depends.
That's what he wanted to know.
Oh, we go to a bunch of different schools. Whatever the needs are of the child that the district has the capability of taking that child.
Being a small district, we don't have all the various programs that you might have in your district, or a lot of, Middle Country certainly has. Our numbers are much smaller. Questions? Yes, sir.
Some napkin math. So the salaries are around 30 million, right? If we're running class sizes, because our population's less, at roughly 80%. We're going from 200 to 160, just some rough math. If that's called 20% is the number, that's what, $6 million there. Do we have the flexibility to pull the trigger quickly? To literally take our teacher count down for next year? Are there any contractual?
If that happened, and that was a real scenario,
the answer is
could we
no.
cut those
We can
positions?
do it. There's no restriction.
Right. There's nothing in the contract, nothing in the contract about that. We are free to do it.
more nimble.
Yeah, but that, you know, again, as the general pointed out, your budget's healthy, then you can actually have a discussion about class size. But that's where your savings is with bodies. Again, in that unfortunate experience I had, we cut 120. And the district's not back to where, or the music program's not back to where it was. It's a sad thing to have to go through.
And when you access the last bid, right?
Yeah, the lack of seniority lowest seniority.
Depending on the teacher might be what the different needs.
There are.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're at the portion of the agenda where you can ask any question you'd like that is pertaining to our agenda, something else other than what we just answered for you. Now is the time to ask those questions. Yes?
For item 5, I guess 6C, the new elementary school principal, can you tell us a little bit about the principal and the transition period between the new principal and Dr. Downforth?
I certainly am happy to tell you about that. We had a lot of filters on our OLOT search. We needed a literacy background, I've mentioned now for several months, about upgrading our reading program. And we needed our elementary principal to be current in training. And the great thing about this person is he was a math geek in school, the AP Calc guy. When he graduated from NYU, he realized he didn't have a literacy background, so he went and got his master's in literacy. So we feel that he has math strengths, and he was a math coach in the city as well. So this is a gentleman who spent 5 years as principal. Because of his talents, he was recommended that he go to leadership training in the city. And after 5 years, there was a situation where he thought he would be wise to move up to district office, where he spent a year, and found out that he made a mistake, wanted to get back into the principalship. He missed kids. He went through a grueling process. One of the rounds was all of our SBOs, our school-based organizations, including SEPTO, PTO, Friends of the Arts, and which one was it? The Booster Club. And they interviewed him pretty vigorously. Then he went and he met the teachers in the elementary and office staff. Another round was with the administrators in the district. And this is after he went through the first initial screening round. And perhaps one of his most vigorous rounds was with the board here for a 5th round. Now, we started with 4, and by far, in my opinion, he was the strongest. And he has a background in Columbia, so we're not wasting our money on the Columbia program. He's trained at Columbia, they know him there and have a good relationship. He goes in, if a teacher has an issue teaching anything, he's the first already to say, you know, so you look a little frustrated about it. Do you mind if I show you how you could do this? And you'll teach. He's a teacher coach. Has a lot of energy, wants to move to the city, come back to, he's from North Babylon, and his wife's from North Babylon. They have a 3-year-old son. Did not want a son growing up and going to preschool in the city. He's moving back to the island even before he interviewed here. So it's interesting how strong he performed at every round that he was faced with. He was very prepared. And again, I think the board did an excellent job with their interview, and he had to be on his toes for that one. but he knows what a special place this is. I think he's going to help us invigorate the reading program. I think he's going to be great working with our SBOs on every level. I look forward to working with him. I think he's going to help our teachers currently with a lot of their frustrations and do the right thing by the district. But I'll always throw in there, I have the opportunity. If he knows what my marching orders are, all the candidates did, what my expectations are. If they're not met, we will continue our search after year one.
Can I add a little bit?
Sure.
I think what Gordon said was very good. This is the second year I've been on this board, and I certainly don't want to compare to political things that are going on there now, but I felt that this position, and all the board members did, this was a crucial position. We hire teachers, and teachers they do all of the grunt work. They're with our children every day, but we have 3 schools, and we have tremendous leadership in those schools. Currently here, Pete is here. Rob Grable at the high school, Dr. Gentlecore has been terrific, and he's leaving. But we felt that this hire was so important for the district for the next, 20 years or so. You have the right person who sets the tone in the school. Your children here, they get a certain education, they come out a certain way. And when they move on to the middle school, they're just better students already. So, as Gordon said, we took this very seriously. I felt that this was maybe one of the most important things I did as a board member, that we're hiring a principal here that's going to be at this elementary school, which, no offense to Pete or Rob Grable, but it might just be the most important, right? It's how you start and the building blocks, and then they move on. So, again, I want to commend Gordon because he was very diligent, and the rounds that he put him through, and then we as a board did, I mean, obviously you couldn't be there, but I tell you what, the other members on this board asked him some very, very challenging questions, and we wanted to know exactly how he was going to handle himself and what he was going to do. And I feel very confident, and I think you guys should feel confident, and I'm certain that if you don't, we'll see you guys here and you let us know.
So what's the transition plan?
He will begin, I believe it's July 14.
And he starts
10?
at 10.
Dr. Gentlecore wanted to transition with this young man, and he's leaving. His last day is the 4th, so he's officially retired the 5th.
August.
It's great when you give the principal an opportunity to transition with a longtime principal in the school, which helps him really hit the ground running. So they'll be working together. He'll be working with the assistant principal as well, and getting a good feel of what this administration did or didn't get to complete, and it'll work well. It's great, because I've been without transition periods, and learning on your own is a rough start.
Any other questions? Okay. So, Carrie, resignation, please.
Sure. A, resignation, custodial worker 1, resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the resignation of Kevin Quago, custodial worker 1, effective May 20th, 2017.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Comments? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Peter, childcare?
Excuse me, B, childcare leaves. Number 1, childcare leave, Deanna Dorn. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the childcare leave request of Deanna Dorn, elementary school teacher, for the 2017-18 school year.
I just wanted to second.
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you, Bob. Comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Go ahead, Pete.
Number 2, childcare leave, Laura Tricoros.
Triacus.
Sorry.
Tricoros.
Tricoros. I apologize, Laura.
So do I.
Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the child care request of Laura Triarchos, elementary teacher for the 2017-18 school year.
Second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Ed, elementary school principal?
Administrative appointment, elementary school principal Don Catlin. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following probationary appointments. Don R. Catlin as principal, effective July 10, 2017 through July 9, 2021, at a compensation rate of $160,000 per year, certified as a school building leader professional.
Second?
Thank you, Lynn. I just want to echo what everybody else said. When he came before the board last week, we're a tough group. We're very diverse. We have a healthcare professional, an attorney, human resources accounting, a couple of educators, and a cop. So we kind of put him through the grill, and he really came out on top and then some. Just the cop. Just the cop. All right, a little more than a cop, but anyway, I was just trying to keep it simple, but we really, we enjoyed cross-examining him, and he was amazing. He really was. No matter how hard or how fast we came at him, he was able to respond, and he's a great guy, and I'm very excited. As much as I love Dr. G, I'm very excited for a new person to start in our district. He's a baby, but I think he'll bring great energy to the district, the elementary school, and I'm certainly looking forward to it myself.
One other comment, that we were very fortunate that our finalists, the final four, were all extremely well qualified. It's just that he stood above, head and shoulders above the three other candidates. All excellent candidates. Each one of them would have done a great job for our district. He was just really above and beyond superior.
Good. Anybody else? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Action items. Bob?
Committee on Special Education resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education. There's no objections to the following special education recommendations and approves the authorization for the funds to implement the special education programs and services consistent with such as listed.
Second?
Thank you, Lynn. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Lynn, obsolete?
Yes. Obsolete equipment. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby declares the following items as obsolete and further authorizes disposal as listed.
Second.
Thank you, Pete. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. SEPTO, Mike?
Sure, SEPTO scholarship resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the inclusion of a scholarship for a graduating senior in the amount of $500 from Mount Sinai SEPTO.
I'll second that.
Good. Any comments?
One comment, thank you to SEPTO.
I thank you, too. Anything else? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Carried?
Sure. Stephen Schultes, a junior memorial scholarship, result upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the inclusion of a scholarship for a graduating senior in the amount of $500 from Eileen Walsh.
Thank you, Mike. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
One belated comment, thank you to Ms. Walsh for her generosity.
Pete?
Inspectors of Election, Assistant Clerk, resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of the Board of Education hereby appoints the following persons to act as inspectors of election, assistant clerks for the budget vote board election to be held on Tuesday, May 16, 2017, at the rate of $12 per hour, as listed.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Ed, Board of Registration?
Board of Registration, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby adds Joanne Alfaro to the Board of Registration vote for the 2016-17 fiscal year.
Second?
Thank you, Lynn. Comments? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Dan's, Bob?
resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following motion. Be it resolved by the Board of Education of Mount Sinai Union Free School District, Suffolk County, New York, as follows. Section 1, subject to the provisions of the local finance law, the power to authorize the issuance of and to sell not exceeding $10 million tax anticipation notes of the Mount Sinai Union Free School District, Suffolk County, New York, including renewals thereof, in anticipation of the collection of taxes levied on or to be levied for the fiscal year of said school district commencing July 1st, 2017, is hereby delegated to the President of the Board of Education of said school district, the Chief Fiscal Officer. Such note shall be in such terms, forms, and contents, and shall be sold in such manner as may be prescribed by said President of the Board of Education, consistent with the provisions of the local finance law. Section 2, the resolution shall take effect immediately.
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. Any comments?
Just, I always say this every year, because the state has an antiquated budget system, we have to take out a loan because they haven't figured, they don't give us our tax money that you vote on for months upon months, so we have to take a loan because of how they set up the system.
Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Lynn, library books?
Yep. Obsolete library books. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby declares the attached list of library books from the middle school library as obsolete and further authorizes the donation of said books to the Salvation Army and the Better Worlds Book Drop-In Port Jefferson.
Second.
Thank you, Pete. Comments?
Good God, getting rid of a lot of books here. Is
I
this
know.
Fahrenheit 451? Are we burning books? I will miss the
Why, you guys
story
getting rid
of
of Kurt
Levi
Cobain?
Strauss.
The sad thing is, I probably ordered half of these when I first started. Anyway, I'm okay with that. Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. All right, here's the portion of our agenda where you are free to ask any question just about that you would like to of the board, Ms. Brasdale, business official, Ms. Jensen. Hi.
Can you give us a general sense as to the, how the teacher negotiations are going? I understand you can't give us details.
I can't. I mentioned before, we've been negotiating seriously since last April, and I think that both sides are moving respectfully. There is movement, which is encouraging, but we know, I just showed you the last 5 months what our district needs are, and we're cognizant of those needs, every member of the board, as we go through into these negotiations. The salaries and benefits are the largest hunk of our budget. So whatever we grant for the 5 years has to be seriously considered, and I know I'm vague. But at least we're still speaking. It's very respectful, no accusations, and that's where we are at this point. We hope that we'd love to come to some sort of agreement before the end of the year, but we'll see.
Our year being June 30th.
Yes.
Anybody else? Hi.
Hi. I've seen online where they've had other schools where the graduating seniors go back to the elementary school and walk through the halls in their caps and gowns for the elementary students and the kindergarten students. And I just wanted to make the suggestion, because I have a graduating senior, but also because it's Dr. Johnfoy's last year, that maybe it would be nice if we could do something like that for him and for the graduating seniors and for the elementary students too, to see that you do graduate someday.
And, you know, as far as I know, that is still going to occur this year. And Dr. G is an interesting guy. Sometimes he will accept and like things the way they're done. Otherwise, and other times he's very particular about his privacy. So we have a small reception in mind for ourselves. We showed Dr. Gentlecourt coming up, but I can tell you, you know, he's my neighbor over here, and I've enjoyed working with him over 3 years. But I've also learned to respect his privacy and what he wants to do, and what we could do for him, because I know a lot of people do. and his own office staff and the rest have something planned, and it's kind of by invite only. So you tread softly with
Right.
that kind of thing.
Well, I just meant just for them just to walk through the walls.
Yeah, they are.
See the kids.
They're
Oh, they are
going-
going to do that?
We did it last year.
Oh, they did do it
Yeah,
last year?
It's all planned.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
all think the building got smaller.
Yeah, so that would be great if they could do it again this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome, good.
Thank you. Something else? Yes?
Just one other thing, you know, I've been listening to you guys talk for years about go out and get people to vote. I just want to let you know, I've been doing that a lot in the last
Thank you
month.
so much.
To the degree that I was in West Marine, and the guy had just bought a boat, and he was outfitting it, and talking to the clerk about how he just moved into Mount Sinai, and he's like so excited to be here, and his kids are gonna start school next year, and I pretty much tackled him and said, "Hey, are you voting? What vote? You have to vote," and gave him all the reasons why he has to vote. So hopefully we have at least one extra vote.
He's the one.
Thank you.
So
Appreciate it.
I've been accosting people on a regular basis trying to get through the vote.
That is great.
In that same vein, this young lady down here, Monica Stone, has sent me some interesting graphs, and I wouldn't say, Monica, they're really optimistic, but other people in our surrounding communities share our woes with a low voting turnout. Correct, Monica?
Yes, it was surprising to see that Mount Sinai's, all I had is total number of votes. You have to FOIL to get number of registered voters. But in looking at the districts around, Mount Sinai was comparable or higher for total votes than all of our surrounding districts.
Definitely Miller Place, and I think Rocky Point.
Yeah, Rocky Point, Shoreham, it was either equal or higher. So it was a little eye-opening, I expected, so it did seem like perhaps we're not alone. But I certainly don't think I think we should still encourage a vote. I think voting is important, whether it's the school budget, a local election, state, national. I think we can all do better as citizens to get out and vote. But I was mainly doing it to look and see, is there a school district doing better that I could look at and say, hey, how are they doing it? What are they doing differently? And unfortunately, I couldn't find one that was. So, but I certainly think we can still, let's get people out and take pride in our community.
Thank you.
But,
I noticed your chart intimidated me because you didn't hear that speech from me tonight.
What's interesting is we had today's registration day. That's why Maureen was not with us until a certain hour it closes. And we did have high school students register.
How many did we get? 10. 10 voters is 10 voters.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. My son was one, so I'm very happy. I saw his picture. So he was doing it. But what I've done, and this is just me, I know people post things on Facebook and say, please come out and vote. I try and private message all of my friends and just say, hey, and make it personal. It's hard to get out and knock on doors, but, certainly everybody's got a, laptop.
you knock on doors, then you'll see posts about who's walking around knocking on door.
We'll be calling the police.
We're going to have Gordon's actually getting a big bus, and he's going to drive through the community ringing a bell. And people will think it's ice cream, and then we'll grab them. Maybe you can help us accost them, throw them in the bus and bring them here. So they only get ice cream after they vote.
But honestly, anything
Bring the band
you
back.
can think of would be most
Well,
appreciated.
the elementary school science fair is that evening, correct?
That is correct.
Yes.
And will there
And
be signs
PTO.
saying, the school vote is this
Yep.
way?
The PTO also runs their book fair,
Right.
which brings, more importantly, the parents with money
Right.
to the back near the small gym.
Okay.
There's some thought that goes into this,
Okay.
where we put everything.
Yes, yes, of course.
With regards to Dr. Genicore, I know that he was totally flabbergasted about postings on Facebook that were so nice with his picture when it came out in the record. And he just couldn't believe all the messages from the parents. So this is another way to recognize him. Also, personal notes. He looks like his dad was the principal, and he goes through some of his dad's stuff. And he said, you know, Mrs. So-and-so talked about James and what my dad did for him. And that's a nice memory to have. So things like that, even if you can't come together as a large group, personal things like that are really great. I know I go through my cards every once in a while and say, oh, yeah, I really did do that. That's neat.
Anybody else want to share anything tonight? I want to thank Mr. Jockers once again for videotaping us. We are on YouTube, so you can direct anybody who's not here to that. With that said, we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Keith. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, everyone. See you at the voting booth next week.